Everybody, welcome back to the Don J MMA podcast. We've had a lot going on since we've been gone, and I know. Listen, we say this every single time. We're going to get consistent. We are. Um, I've been having storage issues. That's my excuse. Don Dada, on the other hand, doesn't have any. It's his fault.
Yeah.
And lately we've been having a lot of fight news going on lately. Jones versus Stipe got announced. A lot's been going on, but one of the most, I guess, controversial things that's been going on lately is UFC 306 was dead and buried. So we thought. Merab Dvalishvili and Sean O'Malley, they had what seemed on first watch a pretty one-sided fight from my point of view. And since then, we've had people like the MMA Guru, we've had multiple content creators kind of not only dogging Merab's style, but actually claiming that the Sean O'Malley fight was close, or in fact that Sean O'Malley won. Don, I want to start off with this. Is there anything to these opinions, or is it just bashing Merab's style because it's boring?
A bit of both. Look, I'm going to be honest. A lot of people, I've seen people in the comments talk about that fight saying 5-0 Marab and stuff like that. It definitely wasn't that one sided. Now, Marab, in my opinion, did win. I feel like everybody that night knew Marab won, even O'Malley's coaches, even Sean O'Malley himself. Just you knew that he knew Marab had won. It was still a close fight though. Obviously, round five definitely has to go to O'Malley. Rounds one and three are the rounds that people are trying to say. Well, the MMA Guru in particular are trying to score for Sean O'Malley. For me, I I don't think I could give him round one, but there is an argument to be had for round three. Regardless of what way you would sort it out, I still think the right man won on the night. I feel like a lot of people are just overhating because it was Marab. Is Marab the most entertaining fighter to watch? No, but he does have an effective style. And I think the right guy got his hand raised at UFC 306.
Yeah, I have to agree with you with that. On first watch, right, and we're going to get into in a second frame by frame scoring, which I really, really, I don't want to say I can't stand because I like content creators like the Weasel and the MMA Guru, but I don't really think it works. But you've got Sean O'Malley and Marab have this fight, and on first watch, it did kind of feel like a at least a 4-1 Marab sort of fight, 4 rounds to one. Like you said, there's no doubt round five went to Sean O'Malley, and sometimes. We've seen with so many fights, the last round seems to stick out in people's minds a lot more than the previous rounds. And actually, round five was had a lot more moments in it in the sense that Sean O'Malley actually managed to hurt Marab or at least hurt him momentarily with a front kick to the body. So I think sometimes these sort of things stick in people's minds, maybe. And another thing I have to point out is I think some people do fall into the trap of sometimes maybe thinking because a fighter is on top, that means they're completely dominating the fight. Whereas I actually think Sean O'Malley did a good job a lot of the time off his back, building back up. But ultimately, throughout the fight, he was continuously taken down, and it wasn't a highly damaging fight either, which I think
No.
we can get to. Because I think if Marab had gone in there when he gets half guard or when he gets full guard, just dropped a few elbows on Sean and tried to open him up, these rounds can clearly go to Marab. But the problem with Marab's style is whenever he comes across a guy that does tag him every now and again on the feet, because he doesn't do much on the ground, I think some people that do understand the sport and they may be looking to look at it in a different sort of view always end up saying, well, Sean O'Malley took that round based off damage. But for me, I think Merab Dvalishvili can take lessons from it in the sense that just go in there and try and just land more damage. Do you know what I'm trying to say? I
Yeah.
definitely think Merab won decisively, but I do think the backlash does speak to sort of how inactive Merab can be on the ground.
Yeah. I do also think though as well, touching up on a lot of people don't like Marab and his fight style, and a lot of people do like Sean O'Malley and like his fight style. So the
Yeah.
fight, yes, Marab clearly won it, but there were points in that fight where it was close enough to where if you are a big Sean O'Malley fan, you're going to argue the point of O'Malley won or O'Malley should have taken this round. And that happens in most fights as well. I mean, we've seen that for Adesanya versus Dricus Duplessis, the way people had that scored before the finish. We've seen that with
Yeah,
Sean Strickland, Dricus Duplessis. If you favoritize a certain fighter, you're gonna maybe go, well, actually, that round was close, but I'll give it to him because you
yeah,
prefer to watch him fight. And that I feel like that is what's happened with this whole frame by frame scoring. And did Marab actually win? Did Sean O'Malley win? Talking about damage and stuff like that. Just quickly talking about, I know you said about the frame by frame scoring and stuff like that. I'll hold my hands up. I haven't watched the MMA Guru's video. I do know though it is rounds 1 and 3 that he is talking about. I haven't watched his video, so I can't really comment on his scoring criteria and what he went for. But this is a big thing throughout other close MMA fights, or when there is a guy who does fight with a Marab type style, a grappling heavy style, and that is, what is the criteria that we're scoring on? Is it damage? Do we take into consideration control time more now? Like, what is the criteria?
yeah. Like when most people, and if we do point ourselves to the judging criteria, it does say factually that control time is not a factor unless fights are really, really close. And if people do believe Sean O'Malley beat Marab, well, he can't have done because if it's really, really close and not a lot is happening on the feet in these rounds, Marab has to win them on control time.
Yeah,
Do you know? Because there wasn't much damage. People talk about Marab not doing much damage to Sean O'Malley in these rounds, but neither was Sean O'Malley to him. It's a two-way thing. It isn't all one way. It is a two-way thing. And if these rounds were as close as the MMA guru sort of makes out, you have to acknowledge control time. You do have to. And another issue I have with this, and I'll get your obviously you can jump in here in a minute, Don, if you want, because I don't know whether you agree with it or not. My issue with frame by frame scoring is we don't watch the fight that way. That we don't watch fights and judge them. Judges don't watch fights and judge them frame by frame. You look at the face value, full speed, who won an exchange, who won a grappling exchange, who was winning on the ground. It's easy to screenshot a moment where someone has hand control or wrist control against the cage and they're managing to find an advantageous position, but it's full speed, who is winning each exchange in every different area of mixed martial arts. For me, when I see people like the Weasel or the MMA Guru doing this is the criteria heavy, light, and glancing shots. I think that's what the MMA Guru had, and it was like Marab kicked Sean O'Malley's knee. That was a glancing shot. For me, these sort of things just don't really work. You know, I kind of get where they're coming from, and you can use frame by frame for a lot of good things, like looking at how a fighter maybe found a knockout or how they set up a knockout, you know, and those videos are really fun. But for me, to score a fight frame by frame just doesn't work because you just don't do that with fights in general.
yeah, I agree. I don't think that frame by frame scoring system works. And again, with the light, heavy, glancing shots, I mean, some of them are clear cut, yes, but a lot of the time when you see people break down stuff like that, it can be a matter of opinion as well. Like a shot that I
Yeah.
think, that kind of glanced, you might say, no, I'd count that as a light shot. So again, it kind of falls back into that narrative of where, like for example, the MMA guru obviously wanted Sean O'Malley to win. So that he's trying to make it fit his narrative that O'Malley won. So I haven't watched the video, so I don't know if he is completely biased to Sean O'Malley in the video. You can maybe fill me in on that and tell me after. But yeah, frame by frame scoring doesn't work. Like you said, it's not how we watch the fights. And for me, when you're watching fights and they are close, like for example, Gamrot versus Dan Hooker was another fight that a lot of people were like, "Who won this? Was this close?" Blah blah blah. When I watched that fight, Gamrot won it, in my opinion. Now, was it a close fight? Yes. But I feel like even when you get these really close fights, when you are watching it, in your mind, there is a clear winner. Like, I've never really went in at the end of a fight and went, fuck, I actually don't know who's getting their hand raised here. In my, like, most of the time, nearly, in fact, all the time, you'll go, well, actually, no, I think Gamrot done enough in this round to get the win. It was a close fight, but I feel like this guy's done enough. Same with the Marab example as well. Like, Marab had done enough at the end of round 5. Like I said, everybody knew that he'd won. So this frame by frame stuff doesn't work, and a lot of these people do use it to kind of create the narrative that they want. Frame by frame doesn't work.
Yeah, like you said, Sean O'Malley himself, regardless of what he's saying now, and I do think he's kind of playing the sort of Chael Sonnen, Anderson Silva,
Yeah,
and the real champ sort of character, which is good fun. But for the people kind of falling into it, look, Sean O'Malley and Marab, when the winner was about to get the hand raised, when you look at Sean O'Malley, you are looking at a beaten man. You just are. There is
yeah,
no two ways about it. Anyone who understands remotely what body language looks like, everybody in the world, I don't even think you'd need to be. If I took someone who's never watched fighting before and I sat them in front of the TV and I just showed them the winner about to get announced and said, "Who do you think won that fight based off how each of them are acting?" You've got Marab like this, ready to just jump in the air and celebrate. And you've got Sean O'Malley kind of just staring at the floor. It's telling, you know. That alone, to me, shows Sean O'Malley knew for a fact he did not win that fight.
yeah, definitely. And I mean, like you said, Sean O'Malley is probably playing up to this. Even when
Yeah.
he done the podcast afterwards, after the Marab fight, which I thought was a good podcast until his friends started like bitching and complaining about not being invited to the party. But when he was actually speaking about it, I thought Sean O'Malley was really handling the loss well, and has coached Tim Welch. We'll actually get on to what he thought about his advice. Seeing a lot of people shitting on that, but we will get into that later on. I feel like Sean O'Malley spoke very well about the loss, handled it very well, and now the kind of, not that he would fall out of relevancy if you want to call it that, but to stay relevant and keep his name out there, he is playing into this gimmick, like a Chael Sonnen, like you said. And Sean
Yeah.
O'Malley's fan base is a lot of younger people. Like,
Hmm.
so they'll see Sean O'Malley say he won, say he thought he won, and they'll take that now and run with it. So they'll put it all over Twitter. Sean O'Malley won. They'll make the TikTok edits. They'll make the YouTube videos. So Sean O'Malley knows what he's doing in that sense. I feel like we've seen at the end of the fight he knew he lost. We've seen him talk about the loss on the podcast. He openly admitted that he lost and he handled it very well in my opinion. And now this is him just playing into a gimmick to kind of keep his name out there.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I don't think it's a bad idea from him, like you said, to keep himself relevant. As much as it'll piss a few people off, who cares? Who don't love pissing a few people off every now and again? But like I said, this whole situation for me literally all boils down to that. Paul, whatever you might think of the rounds, just look at the body language at the end. One was a beaten man, and one was a man that was pretty set. Now, imagine if Sean O'Malley got that decision too, right? Just imagine if Sean O'Malley got that decision. He would have been completely shocked, and he
Yeah,
would not have been
definitely.
hiding. He would have definitely been completely shocked. And I think we would be looking at this fight as probably one of the biggest robberies of all time, quite literally, if Sean O'Malley got that fight. So for me, like you said before, that you sort of touched up on, when people do these scoring videos and stuff like that, for me, they're fun to do, they're interesting to watch. I like looking at how shots were landed. Yes, the Weasel and the MMA Guru know what they're talking about, and again, I can't refute enough. I am a fan of both of them, but I just there's reaching, and I think that's what the MMA Guru was doing there. But overall, Sean O'Malley versus Marab. Don, I wanted to ask you this question as we sort of move on. Merab Dvalishvili's next title defense is apparently going to be Umar Nurmagomedov. I was wondering what your thoughts were on that potential matchup. Who do you see winning that?
I'm gonna start off. I don't know if you'll agree with me on this one. Marab's next fight should be against Davidson Figueiredo. He deserves the fight over Umar Nurmagomedov, in my opinion. Now, Umar Nurmagomedov did beat Corey Sandhagen, who was ranked number 2 at the time. That was a great win. But let's not forget, Davidson Figueiredo is now on a 3-fight win streak in the bantamweight division. He moved up and beat Rob Font, who was ranked inside the top 10. He beat the former champion in Cody Garbrandt. And then he beat Cheeto Vera. Now, say what you want about Cheeto Vera, but Cheeto Vera's fight before Davidson Figueiredo was for the belt. Umar
Yeah.
Nurmagomedov hasn't beaten anybody inside the top 15 outside of Corey Sandhagen, which, yes, is a great win, but I feel like you have to look at the run that Davidson Figueiredo is currently on. And if we're being honest, Umar Nurmagomedov is only in these positions. Why? Yes, he is a great fighter. That was a good win over Corey Sandhagen. But the reason he was in that position to fight Corey Sandhagen is because of his second name. That's a fact.
Well, listen, you went off there, and look, I actually do agree, sort of, in the sense that Davison Figueiredo probably did deserve a title shot on merit more than Umar. Um, the thing with Umar is, like you said, his second name does hold a lot of weight. And similarly to, he's unbeaten, isn't he? Have I
Yeah,
got them?
he's 18
I
and 0,
remember
yeah.
him right. 18 and 0, Nurmagomedov, the second coming of Habib, it's a story that sells well. And I think ultimately, when you're looking at, and he did beat Corey Sanhagen, which was an excellent win. We can't take that away from him. Yes, he was rushed to it. Yes, Corey Sanhagen absolutely 100% took an unnecessary risk when he was that close to getting a title shot himself. But he beat Corey Sanhagen and he beat him handily. Corey Sanhagen gave a really, really good account of himself. But Umar showed in that fight that he probably will be a champion in the very, very near future. So I don't mind the fact that he's got the title shot. I think Figgy against Marab, to me also, it's not a fight I'd be as intrigued to watch because I do think Marab would absolutely drown Davison Figueiredo over the course of 5 rounds. I don't know
Figgy
about you.
has. So sorry about that. Computer shut down. Ali Abdelaziz obviously hacked into my stuff whenever I was griefing Umar Nurmagomedov, and the computer shut down. But yes, like I was saying, these guys are prioritized. Umar is going to fight for the belt next. I think we can all agree on that. And I think what we can all agree on is Umar Nurmagomedov will become champion when he fights Marab, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think Umar Nurmagomedov and Mirab is one hell of a fight. I mean, Umar is a very, very, very good striker. I've noticed him with these sort of Dagestani fighters. Everyone's sort of catching on to the wrestling. So now what they're doing is they're coming up with really, really good striking. Umar Nurmagomedov striking is a level above Habib's ever was.
Yeah. His
It's
kicking
very,
as
very,
well.
very good.
His
His
kicking's
kicks are
insane.
awesome. And added with the wrestling that he can always go to, I think it's going to be a really hard fight for Marab because I always wondered how Marab would do against a guy that doesn't fear his wrestling. And Henry Cejudo was one of those guys. Didn't fear Marab's takedown threat. Really gave Marab a horrific first round. Really rocked him quite badly with a left hook. But Marab showed in that fight he can get the better of high level grapplers. I mean, the way he picked up Henry Cejudo, an Olympic gold medalist in freestyle wrestling, and carried him around the octagon and sat him down, slammed him down. I think it's one of Marab's best performances. I really, really think that performance was unreal. But Henry Cejudo probably wasn't in his prime, if I'm being honest, in that fight. I don't know whatever you think about that, but I don't think Henry was at his absolute peak in that fight. I still think he's a very good fighter, just not at his absolute best. And I also think, compared to someone like Umar, Henry's fucking tiny. Henry is not a
Yeah.
big bantamweight. He's ballooned up. He's muscly, but he is not a big bantamweight, and he never will be. In the Demetrius Johnson fight, they both looked a similar size. That's what we're dealing with. I think Marabdivashvili's physical strength and physical presence really carried him through a lot of that fight. But it was still a remarkable performance against a high-level grappler. Umar showed against Corey Sanhagen, yeah, his grappling is elite because we've seen lately from Corey Sanhagen, his grappling has become really, really good. I think in this fight, I could see it turning into a war where we've got Umar landing the more powerful, impactful shots, neither man being really able to do much with the grappling, but Marab looking for volume. And I think we saw it with Covington and Usman in the first fight and again in the second fight. These kinds of matchups can make for absolute dogfights.
Yeah. I feel like with Umar versus Marab, this is a common theme. I mean, we'll see other fighters who are like, they're great grapplers, their grappling's elite, blah, blah, blah. And then they get in there with one of these guys from Dagestan and their grappling looks amateur. I think that's probably going to be the exact same outcome here against Marab, to be honest. In terms of if it ends up being a war, I think Marab can be a bit chinny. Uh, for a great example is the Henry Cejudo fight. He got clipped in there. Now, is Umar the biggest puncher? No. But I feel like really what this comes down to and what I'm really most looking forward to in this fight is if it gets to this period, can Umar Nurmagomedov keep up with Marab's pace? That's Marab. That's probably Marab's best weapon is his pace. The pace that guy puts on people. Can Umar Nurmagomedov keep up with it? That is what I want to know. And I feel like if Marab is able to make it out into maybe the later stages of the third, going into the fourth and the fifth, Umar
Yeah.
did look good in there against Corey Sandhagen. Like, it didn't look like he gassed out or anything, but Marab puts on a different type of pace on these guys, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out in that fight.
Yeah, I agree. And I think like if we see Umar get pegged back on the back foot, we could even be looking at another Jose Aldo performance. How many times, like I look at Jose Aldo, how good was his takedown defense against Marab? But he focused solely on it because Marab just kept shooting and shooting and shooting. That Marab was just landing pot shots on the feet every now and again, and Aldo wasn't doing anything. Could we see a certain same? I know Aldo and Umar are two completely different animals, but I'm just kind of putting the scenario out there. What if Marab needs to go in there and just kind of force Umar to grapple defensively and just outwork him against the fence? That would be probably one of his best ways to get a clean victory. I think it's a fight or a performance that would really piss off a lot of fans, though.
Yeah, and I feel like with Marab though, that would probably be his best way to winning, making Umar sprawl and work to his feet and stuff like that. But what Marab I feel like needs to be careful of in this fight is if he initiates the grappling, that Umar Nurmagomedov doesn't end up on top or doesn't end up getting the better of him, because one thing about Marab is yes he can take you down, but he doesn't particularly do a great job of keeping you there. And
No.
I feel like Umar could potentially sweep him or get to a better position. And we know what those Dagestani guys are like with their grappling. If he ends up on top of Marab, unless Umar wants to let him up, Marab isn't getting up. So that's just something he needs to be careful of, in my opinion.
Yeah, and he's going in there against a guy that might be stronger than he is. And strength does matter in these sort of fights. It matters a lot. Sometimes if the skill gap is so close, it can come down to brute force. Sometimes I do feel
Yeah,
like sort of grappling transitions. And like I said before, Marab can hold a fighter down, but it's when he tries to posture up, when he tries to pass guard, when he tries to look for a submission, or when he tries to get a back take, that's when he sort of lets the positions go. Now, like you said, he can just keep shooting. He can. He's shown that. He can get away with it with strikers because they can get up, bang, shoots in straight away. Or right overhand into a double leg again and again and again. I think I saw a stat after the Sean O'Malley fight. I think he shot nearly 80 takedowns in his last five fights, which
yeah,
is
it's
absolutely
crazy.
ridiculous. So he can keep going and he will not get tired. But the difference between the two with top control is Umar. Look, people aren't going to find grappling entertaining necessarily, but he looks for the finish. He has very, very vicious ground and pound, very good elbows. He can look for arm triangles. He can look for submissions. And actually, if a guy does manage to pin Marab on his back, maybe Marab will slow down.
Yeah. Yeah, especially if Umar is making Marab carry his weight and making Marab be the one to keep working up to his feet, it could be a possibility. But really, I think what this fight comes down to is, does Marab have someone called Habib Nurmagomedov in his corner? No. Does Umar? Yes. Umar wins. That seems to be the
Yeah,
common theme.
I really think we might see some really good sprawls in this fight from both of them. I think for the majority, Umar might get a takedown on Marab. I do disagree that Marab can't build up. I think he would be able to get up. Um, but ultimately, I think throughout this fight, a lot of the times, look at throughout history, Usman Covington, Bilal versus Brady, or even at a lower level. Not that they're not high level, but you get what I'm trying to say. when we get wrestler on wrestler matchups, GSP, Johnny Hendricks, and this is stalemate, it can come down to sort of the clinch shots, the jabs from distance. And I just think we've seen time and time again, Umar is a lot cleaner than Marab. And when Marab can't get his wrestling going, he is a very, very wild fighter and he's very open to multiple different shots. Whereas Umar is a lot more tighter with his fundamentals. So I think ultimately, I know we've kind of gone on about the fight here. My prediction for that fight, if it was to go down, I have Umar Nurmagomedov winning in a in a competitive but quite a decisive win. I don't know about you, Don.
I'm gonna go Umar sub in inside 3 rounds. I think Umar submits him inside three.
That would be insane. Moving on. So recently, this past weekend, we know you were at the Anthony Joshua versus Daniel Dubois fight and at Wembley. And yeah, what was your thoughts on it being there? What's it like being there as opposed to watching it on TV? And what did you think of the knockout?
Yeah, so starting off Wembley, it was a great night, great venue. The atmosphere was amazing. Obviously, like every sporting event, well, any combat sporting event, whether it's UFC or boxing, the atmosphere doesn't really start to pick up, well, mainly for boxing, until the main event. The atmosphere was still good throughout the card. Mark Chamberlain getting beat to start off the card against Padley, that was a big upset. I mean, nobody seen that coming. Uh, you had Anthony Kakachi versus Josh Warrington. Anthony Kakachi, obviously from Northern Ireland, so I was rooting for the guy to win. Thankfully, he did get the job done in there. Although it wasn't the fight I thought it would be, I thought that would have been fight of the night, but it didn't happen. And potentially after that, that might be the last we see of Josh Warrington. Josh Kelly versus Ishmael Davis. Josh Kelly won that fight pretty comfortably, although I feel like if there were more rounds in that fight, he could have been put down and something could have happened. The scorecards throughout the night were horrendous, in my opinion. Willie Hutchinson versus Joshua Buatsi, that was a really fun fight. Now, how the fuck one of those judges give that fight to Willie Hutchinson is beyond me. He had a point taken off him and he was dropped twice. So, how can you give it a split decision to him? It doesn't make any sense at all. Hamza Shiraz, what a performance from him against Tyler Denny. I thought Tyler Denny, coming off a big win in his last fight, would have been able to show something here, but Hamza Shiraz is continuing to show that he is the real deal. Then you had Liam Gallagher. He was shite. We'll move on. He was crap. Then we had the main event, Anthony Joshua versus Daniel Dubois. The place was electric. Riyadh season, the Saudis, they know how to put on a show. The ring walks were amazing for both fighters. And the fight itself, holy shit, it delivered. I mean, I really did not predict that to happen. I thought AJ would have been too smart for Daniel Dubois in there. I thought his shot selection would have caused Daniel Dubois a lot of problems in there. I thought, just going off from Daniel Dubois' recent performance against Filip Hrgovic, where he had a lot of right hands, I thought defensively Dubois was too open. And the roles were reversed. Anthony Joshua defensively was too open. He got caught with that big right hand in round one and he went down. What I want to say though is when the fight started, I don't know if you noticed this, but in my opinion, Anthony Joshua for this fight came out in more of a wider stance. He wasn't as upright as what he normally was, and I didn't really understand why he done that. To be honest, it's just something I noticed. Maybe I'm just talking shit here, but that's what I thought. And then the fight happens. He's dropped in the first round. He goes back to the corner. And from that round one where he was knocked down, I said to my girlfriend who was beside me, the fight's done. Anthony Joshua's legs did not come back beneath him throughout the entire fight. And Daniel Dubois just bulldozed him. If you can't put a dent in this guy early on, you're in serious trouble.
Yeah, I think with Anthony Joshua, I mean, there's a lot of controversy going on here. Some people think that the fight was fixed, and stuff like that. Like the conspiracy theories are really, really fun and cool. I can't stress enough how hard it would be to fix a fight at the highest level without it leaking out. Or, it would basically be, I wouldn't say impossible, it would be fucking ridiculously hard. And not just that, Anthony Joshua would not take a fucking dive. Not a
No.
chance in a million years when he's about to make 150 million fighting Tyson Fury. So that would not happen. Um, regardless of what Turkey Al Sheikh did, because there's this whole thing about Turkey Al Sheikh doing this with his hand or something, and
Yeah.
then that shortly after that, just a load of bollocks, a load of bullshit. But I guess it's a talking point. And then for me, so when I came home from work, and I watched near the end of the first round, so I didn't get to see Anthony Joshua walking out and that. And when I watched it after, it did seem like something, not what it seems like in hindsight, something was off. But at the same time, if Anthony Joshua would have won, I would have probably looked at his walkout and thought, oh, he looks cold there, he looks focused. I think it's just people look for reasons when a fighter loses, and sometimes I think it just really isn't as deep as the better man won on the night, and I think Daniel Dubois clearly in that ring was hungrier. I think Daniel Dubois clearly in that ring was far more powerful. I mean, oh my word. Like Anthony Joshua's never been known for having a great chin, but when he knocked down Anthony Joshua, I said like literally the same thing as you. I said to my partner, I was like, there is no way Anthony Joshua's going to win this fight now. And then I can't remember which round it was, but that one little glimmer of hope, Anthony Joshua lands a thudding right hand. Dubois gets rocked a little bit. And I think Joshua must have still been rocked because the way he rushed in was so careless. The way he was just stood tall, just kind of looking to get rid of Dubois, rush and get him out of there, instead of being a bit more measured, was telling that maybe he still wasn't all there. I know there's moments where he was trying to like talk and trying to like, at Daniel Dubois and stuff like that. You know what I'm trying to say? Um, the corner advice too is a big talking point. I don't know if you've heard anything about that,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
Ben Davidson is getting a lot of heat for his corner advice to Anthony Joshua, particularly when he said time the uppercut, which can mean a multitude of different things. Because time the uppercut could mean time the uppercut on the inside, it could mean time the uppercut on the outside. He didn't go into specifics on how to do it, but Joshua was throwing naked uppercuts throughout the entire fight. I don't know if you noticed that.
Yeah, so with the Ben Davidson thing, touching on that quickly, uh, a lot of people now are just jumping to hate on Ben Davidson. Obviously, I don't know what clip you've seen, but I seen the one where Shane McGuigan, who again is a very uh, good boxing coach, he was talking about it. And now Shane McGuigan has worked with Daniel Dubois before, so he knows what shots are going to come from Daniel Dubois. He's worked with him very closely. Ben Davidson is a great trainer. I feel like a lot of people are really looking into this. Um, Say Ben Davison told Anthony Joshua to look for that uppercut and go in there and have a shootout with him, and Anthony Joshua went out the next round and knocked Daniel Dubois out, everybody would be calling him a genius. This is just how the game
Yeah,
works. It's similar to what happened with Tim Welch when he was in Sean O'Malley's corner when people were critiquing him, saying he wasn't being urgent enough with Anthony Joshua. These guys train these fighters daily, so they know what work. Tim spoke about this just in an example when he was speaking about the thing with Sean O'Malley, and he said that Sean O'Malley doesn't respond to being shouted at. So
no,
Ben Davison will know how to speak to Anthony Joshua and how to get into him. Now, did he give him the right advice? In my opinion, no. But it's easy for us to say sitting on the outside, oh, I'd have told him to do this and told him to do that. We're not in the moment. Also, another thing to touch up on this quickly is we didn't hear the corner advice from rounds one through to the final round. So maybe Ben Davidson and his team were saying to Anthony Joshua, stick behind the jab, keep the hands up, look to clinch with him. And Anthony Joshua just obviously wasn't listening, maybe. So they just realised, right, this is what he's going to do. We're going to try and give him the best shots, in our opinion, that will land and hurt Daniel Dubois. Go out there and try and do that. AJ was done from round one. Really, the fight could have been called off then. And like you said
yeah,
about Anthony Joshua's chin, I do feel like he is a bit over criticised for his chin. I don't necessarily think it's his chin that is really bad. I feel like it's his recovery. When Anthony Joshua gets hurt or goes down, he can never seem to get his legs beneath him again. Like Tyson Fury, for an example, when Usyk had him out in his feet, the bell went. Tyson Fury came out the next round basically good as gold again. Fury's
Yeah.
recovery is great. I think Anthony Joshua has a real problem of getting his legs beneath him again when he is faced with adversity. But the Ben Davidson hate, I feel like it will blow over. He is a great coach. A lot of these elite boxers want to work with him, and there's a reason for that. The guy knows his stuff.
Yeah, I 100% agree that Ben Davidson is a very, very good coach. I definitely think, compared to some people like Shane McGuigan, he's definitely a lot more inexperienced than these guys. Although he has got some good fighters under his belt. He has got a lot of main events. He's coached Tyson Fury, he's coached Anthony Joshua. He's coached some very, very good fighters. Sometimes I see people like Teddy Atlas, who's a Hall of Fame boxing coach, sort of criticize his coaching style. And obviously those guys are more than able to do that. Teddy
Yeah, yeah,
Atlas has
yeah.
coached Alexander Povetkin, he's coached Mike Tyson, people like that. So I think Ben Davidson's advice, the only thing I would criticize though is I feel like a lot of the times when a fighter is hurt, you see, Anthony Joshua got to the court. I saw this tweet on Twitter actually. Anthony Joshua got to the corner and he said he's shit. And
Yeah.
Ben Davidson kind of went along with it. And this guy was like, he shouldn't have said he's shit. He shouldn't have let him say that. He should have said to him, no, he's dangerous. You need to stay focused. You need to get your feet under you. Take the next 2 rounds to just be safe. Get behind your jab again and get your feet back under you. But instead, Ben Davidson kind of went along with, yeah, he's shit, sort of kind of thing, and said, look to time the uppercut, look to get. When Anthony Joshua clearly wasn't all there. But, like you said, that seems like a good criticism of Ben Davidson until Daniel Dubois might just coming out again. Anthony Joshua tries to get his feet under him, tries to kind of stay on the back foot, keep moving, keep clinching, and Dubois just beats the shit out of him. And Anthony Joshua was hardly throwing back. You know, in that moment, in the round following, Joshua cracked Dubois with a good right hand. It hurt Dubois quite badly. And if Joshua then went and knocked out Daniel Dubois, we're talking about one of the best comebacks ever. Anthony Joshua was the man. Great advice from Ben Davidson. So, like you said, hate on him is a bit overdone. I do think there's some things he probably could have done differently, but I mean, how many? I mean, you'll know, I know. We all have been in situations where we probably could have done something a bit differently, and it probably could have gone a different way or not. I just think it's an interesting one. I definitely think it's an interesting one because Anthony Joshua, I do think looked quite bad compared to how he's looked in recent fights. And someone in my comment section, just to quickly finish up on this, I'll ask you about this, pointed out before the fight he said he thinks Daniel Dubois was going to win because Anthony Joshua hasn't actually fought elite level caliber of fighters in his last few fights. He's kind of been against guys that are very favourable matchups like Francis Ngannou, who, yes, he knocked out in 2 rounds, but at the end of the day, he should be doing that to a guy like Ngannou. And he was saying that maybe Anthony Joshua isn't looking as good as we think he looked. And Daniel Dubois certainly showed that that definitely could be the case.
Yeah, so when I made my predictions video for this is something I did say. Daniel Dubois, without a doubt, going into that AJ fight, had fought the better opposition. Filip Hrgovic and Jarrell Big Baby Miller were better wins. I think everybody can agree than Ngannou and Otto Wallen. Now, a lot of people were talking about this, saying like Anthony Joshua, about the level of opponents, and that is true. Now, I knew that Daniel Dubois had faced and beaten better opponents more recently than Anthony Joshua, but let's not
Yeah.
forget some of the wins Anthony Joshua has on his resume. He's been in massive fights. You've got Klitschko, Povetkin, Joseph Parker. Like, this guy has a stacked resume, a lot of big names on there. Um, but yeah, I mean, Daniel Dubois had beaten the better opponents more recently. I think a lot of people were, including myself, looking too much into the Ngannou win. Uh,
Yeah.
Obviously, Ngannou had an amazing performance against Tyson Fury. I'll hold my hands up. I was an idiot that thought Ngannou was going to beat AJ. Like, I made that prediction because I just believed in the Ngannou hype. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know what's next for Anthony Joshua. I see a lot of people saying, does he retire? Does he fight Wilder? I seen Eddie Hearn say Anthony Joshua's not going to make any decisions until after Usyk Fury 2. just to finish up the episode, and we're gonna round off here on the Anthony Joshua fight. For me, I feel like Anthony Joshua has two options. One, retire. Option number two is get back in there with Daniel Dubois and have that rematch. He can't sit out and wait for Fury Usyk to happen, because if he does, and say Fury loses, is there going to be, yes, it is still a big fight, but are people going to be dying to see AJ versus Fury when both guys are coming off losses? No. If Fury beats Usyk and he makes a voluntary defense against Anthony Joshua, are people going to be that hyped about it? Well, no, not really, because why would Anthony Joshua, coming off a loss, be uh, given this opportunity? He needs to rematch Dubois. That is it. If he doesn't rematch him, he should just hang up the gloves, in my opinion. He's had a great career, an Olympic gold medalist, a unified heavyweight champion twice. He's got a stacked resume. He's made a boatload of money. He'll never have to work again a day in his life. His kids won't have to work a
Yeah.
day in their life. It's either shit or bust now. You go in there against Dubois, fight him, and win, and then again, that's the undisputed fight opened up to you. Or you go in there against Daniel Dubois again and lose. And if you want to continue after you lose the rematch to him, the Wilder fight's still going to be there, and the Dillian White fight's still going to be there. But at this moment in time, it's either retire or fight Daniel Dubois again.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And just to finish up, I think Anthony Joshua, like 100% agree. His option now is Eddie Hearn's even also confirmed that there is a rematch clause and they will be activating it. Look, get in there against Daniel Dubois, get back to Wembley, Manchester Arena, whatever. Get in the UK, fight Daniel Dubois, and just balls to the fucking wall. It's either now or never. Go in there, try smoke Daniel Dubois. And if it doesn't plan out like you said, I mean, Anthony Joshua gets a lot of hate because he's a very well-known star. He brought back boxing in a way that I think a lot of people don't give him credit for.
I
That
agree.
period after Floyd Mayweather retired, boxing was fucking dying. It was dying. And people don't admit it, it was. Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury, but mainly Anthony Joshua, when he went and knocked out Vladimir Klitschko, when he went in there and knocked out Dylan White, this really brought British boxing back, but boxing as a whole and the heavyweight division. Whether or not Anthony Joshua did end up fighting Tyson Fury, which even if they were to fight now would be too late, in my opinion. If he was to fight Wilder now, would definitely be too late. Wilder's completely done. Um, I just think Anthony Joshua deserves a lot more credit than people give him credit for. He's a magnificent fighter. He's had a magnificent career. He's carried British boxing on his back for at least 6 years at one point. He's had some great fights. He's got Charles Martin, Dylan White, Alexander Povetkin, Vladimir Klitschko, Otto Wallin, Francis Ngannou. He's got the list goes on and on and on of names that he has beaten, regardless of who he came up short against. And yeah, if this is the end for Anthony Joshua, if he chooses not to activate the rematch clause, fair play to him. If he chooses to go in there and have another fight, best of luck to him. But other than that, I just want to finish off with saying Anthony Joshua, what a career.
Yeah, yeah. And do you know what? The Daniel Dubois fight is a fight that Anthony Joshua can win. Now,
Yeah,
did he show, what was it, really competitive? No, it was kind of one-sided, if we're being honest. But AJ showed that he can hurt him in there. And I feel like it's definitely a winnable matchup for Anthony Joshua. The guy has had a great career. If he chooses to retire now, he's a boxing Hall of Famer for sure, in my opinion. Uh, so yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what's next. I'm looking forward to the rematch. I think AJ will take the rematch, and what a fucking fight that'll be. I'm picking AJ to KO him inside 6 rounds in the rematch. What's your early prediction?
yeah. My prediction for that fight would be Daniel Dubois to win again, and I think he would do it in around 5 rounds, maybe one round more than last time. I just think he's a bad matchup for Anthony Joshua, and I am questioning whether Anthony Joshua is in his prime right now.
Yeah, well, there you have it. Ben is picking Daniel Dubois. I'm picking Anthony Joshua. Clip this shit up for the rematch. Let's see who gets it right. Yeah, so hopefully we're going to get a bit more episodes in. Said every week. We are trying. Trust me. But yeah, thanks for the support. Let us know in the comments any questions, what you want to topics you want us to talk about. Be sure to follow us on TikTok, and yeah, we'll see you again on the next one.
See you later, guys.